so warm up with winter soups and stews. All right, so kind of picture yourself, you know, the word comfort. Think about it as, like I think of it when I get home from work, I get into comfy clothes. Maybe I have a soup in the crock pot going, turn the fireplace on, and, you know, kind of relax and enjoy the end of the day. And maybe have some crusty bread with that soup. To me, that's comfort. You know, it's cold out and we want to come home and be warm, and that's a sign of comfort. So in a couple days, my comfort's going to be different. I'm going to Florida, so I might be by the pool on a lounge chair, drinking something nice and cold. So that'll be my comfort. But, you know, it does change our definition of comfort with the seasons. So right now we're thinking of winter and getting through all that. Also, just think of comfort foods, the aroma that you get from like a crock pot meal, the texture. That's why I like to use a lot of pieces when I cut up vegetables. I don't really like to puree soups. I know some people use the immersion blender and make it real smooth. I'm personally, everyone's got their personal opinion. I like to see what's in it. So I like little pieces and all. And then you want good nutrition. So soups are a great way to add vegetables and just tweak it. When you get a recipe, kind of look through the ingredients and think, well, I don't really like this, so take it out. It's okay, but maybe replace it with another 1 or 2 vegetables that work for you, and it's totally fine. Some people, when they use broth, like this is a vegetable stock, I made sure I got gluten-free because there might be a person in the crowd that tends to avoid gluten. It doesn't change the flavor, but it makes it more appealing to other people. And maybe you want low sodium, so you can look for low sodium or unsalted broth or products. So kind of things like that is what we call tweaking the recipe, making it your own. And if it calls for like melted butter or something, I always take that out and add extra virgin olive oil, because that's part of the Mediterranean diet or lifestyle, is using those healthy fats. But we'll talk more about it. And also the temperature, you know, I like food hot, you know, like soup hot, but some people might like it to cool a bit too. So soups do offer a wealth of healthy nutrition. You're getting protein. So in this soup that we were making just now, we're going to add some chicken that I cooked up when I first got here. It's just boneless chicken breasts. And that also is an area, if you had a recipe that called for a pound of ground beef and you're trying to cut back on red meat, you can even just cut that pound in half. Well, actually, you can just cook the whole thing up, drain it, and then blot it dry to get the fat, and just use half of it in that recipe, and the other half put it in a freezer bag and label and date it and say what it is, put in the freezer. And maybe down the road you want a meat sauce and you just want to have vegetables in the meat sauce, but a touch of the beef. So then you can just add it. And that step is done because you already cooked it. So that's really good. And then fiber. So in this recipe we're doing, we're using cannellini beans. When I use these in a can, I got the low sodium or reduced sodium, because a lot of people might have hypertension and they're trying to get away from a lot of sodium in their diet. I often leave salt out of a recipe. I know that salt is a flavoring agent, so I let people add their own if they feel they need it. I'm more into black pepper and fresh herbs or dried herbs too for the flavor. But I like to look for these reduced sodium products. And then also calcium. So actually this recipe, we're going to put a rind of Parmesan cheese in it and let it cook with it. Actually, I'm going to throw it in right now, come to think of it. And we'll top it with some shredded Parmesan cheese. And then potassium. You get potassium from a lot of your vegetables and fruit. And so that's a good thing. And then the healthy fat, I put a little olive oil to get started to saute these vegetables. And the antioxidants are coming from all the vegetables that you're using. All these foods that we have in this pot so far are called anti-inflammatory. We'll talk about that, but they're high in antioxidants, which is very good. And we want you to get your antioxidants from the food itself. I know people who are going through treatment like chemo, they're not to be taking products that are high in antioxidants like a multiple vitamin or like vitamin water, things like that. They should just get it from food itself and stop any over-the-counter supplements because it's too much. It decreases the effectiveness of their treatment. So we don't want that. And then to make your soup interesting even more, I have, I'm using Siggy's plain yogurt. Instead of sour cream, you can put a little dollop on your soup. Actually, we'll do it for the black bean recipe. And some people might add some nuts or seeds to give it a little crunch. Even cheese and fresh herbs work well too. So it's kind of, you do what you want with it. And then we're gonna serve some crusty bread. I'm just gonna, I'll just hold it up. So this is like a loaf of crusty bread. And when you decide to have bread, don't look for the white bread, look for the whole grain. So this has seeds in it and whole grain flour. So you want it to count for your nutrition. Part of the Mediterranean diet is trying to have more whole grains in your diet, and that's a good way to do it. So let me just stir this a bit. All right. All right, and then storage. Sometimes we just make a big pot of soup and you don't want to eat it for 7 days in a row. So take what you need for maybe for dinner tonight or whatever, and then have it for lunch. And if you think your plans have changed, you might be going out somewhere or to friends, you can then let the soup cool down a bit and pour it into individual containers. Those little plastic containers with a lid, or some people use glass containers, which is really nice. But you want the soup to be cooled down before you put it in the refrigerator. So it just is too much heat for the refrigerator. And then when you do go to use it, like you're gonna put in the freezer, when you think about like, oh, I'm gonna have my soup, the night before, put that container in the refrigerator and let it thaw in the refrigerator, and then you can just heat it up. You know, either put it in a saucepan to heat up, or you can microwave it. And I always label and date the container. Foods kind of take on a different look when they're frozen, and you're like, what is this? And dating it is helpful too. Usually foods are, for the most part, pretty safe up to a year in the freezer. The quality could go down just from maybe freezer burn or I don't know, just things could happen that way. But from a food safety standpoint, it is safe. But I would say use it up. Periodically, I like to go through my pantry, go through the freezer, the refrigerator, and use things up so you don't get this accumulation. So, and then you're not really shopping that much because you're using up all your food. But they say for better quality, try to use it within 2 to 3 months. So that part is good. All right, so what does healthy mean now? So the big thing, you know, as a cancer survivor, we recommend like a Mediterranean diet or lifestyle. So what the Mediterranean diet is try to use more plant-based foods. You can still have meat. You don't have to be vegetarian. I don't even like labels. I'm just like, you know, more plant-based. So maybe some meals at your home are going to be meatless. So you're going to be using beans, or you might do an egg dish. That's protein for you without the meat. And then, like we were saying, with some of these recipes, you have meat in it, but you're cutting the amount in half. So you're getting the flavors, some protein, but you're not over consuming meat. And you can also opt for ground turkey is good. And, you know, more poultry and fish. I think what is helping people cut down on red meat, especially beef, is that it's expensive now and the quality isn't as good. So I think more people are going to pork, which is a red meat, but it's a lot leaner. So it's nice even to take a pork tenderloin, and I'll just slow cook it in a crock pot, and then it kind of shreds, and you can make bowls out of that where you take brown rice, the shredded pork tenderloin, add some raw veggies and a little dressing, and they're really good that way. Or you can make tacos or anything you want with this meat, but it's leaner for you too. And then you want to have whole foods first. So what that means is when you go through the produce section, you want to get the whole piece of produce, like a whole butternut squash or a whole pineapple, or, you know, the carrots, things that aren't processed by going through a cutting and all that. You want to do it yourself. And you get satisfaction when you get involved in your kitchen. I kind of get in my zone, I call it, where, you know, you're in your element and you're dishes will turn out well. But we're trying to get away from processed foods. That's the big thing with the Mediterranean diet, less processed food. So I always say, like, try to shop the outer perimeter of the grocery store. So I start in the produce section and I plan ahead. I have a few ideas of what I want the dinners to be. I don't have every single meal because I want to count for some leftovers, but I get what I need from the produce section. If you overbuy, you run the tendency to have to throw it out. It goes bad. So vegetables that have a higher water content, like peppers and zucchini, you want to use up first. Some of the harder vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, squash, like the winter vegetables, they last a little longer, so you can use those later. But that's what you want to do. You're processing it by cutting it yourself. And just be careful. We don't want any injuries. And then you want to have health promoting foods. You're using foods that help improve gut health. So try to incorporate some yogurt. So when we add that dollop of yogurt on your soup, you're actually giving some good microflora into your diet. People should really try to take more advantage of the yogurts. I like I said before, the Siggy's yogurt. It's less sugar and it's high protein. And, you know, add some fruit to it, or you can add chopped up apples or walnuts. Make it interesting, but it does help with your gut, you know, help you with digestion. And this Mediterranean diet or lifestyle is also heart healthy. So it's good for people who have heart disease, diabetes, even they're saying Alzheimer's, because it's helping their mind, those foods that are in it, and cancer too. So when we talk about survivors of cancer, like while you're going through treatment, we're pretty loose. I mean, food safety is important, but we're kind of like, you can have whatever you want to maintain your weight and that it's food safe. But when you finish everything up, you want to take on a healthier lifestyle. And I'm a cancer survivor myself. And so I'm back to trying to get a walk in every day, and eating healthy and maintaining my weight. Avoiding weight gain is important. And it takes some work and it becomes a habit. So it becomes your daily mantra that you try to fit all that in, and you feel better too that way. I know this weather, like today, was beautiful. I came in later to work, so I was able to take my walk this morning and it felt so good. So everyone's at a different point with their journey. So if you are going through treatment and you have that fatigue, but maybe you feel like I could maybe do a 10-minute walk, that's fine. And maybe later in the day, if you feel like doing that again. I also say, even just putting a chair out on the driveway and just sitting there, letting the sun on you, and just being around nature can be very calming too. Nature really is important. Like, I feel when I take my walk, I say, I do my best thinking, because it clears your head and you're just very calm and it's really nice. So you work towards where you're at, so no pressure. And then just enjoy a variety of wholesome, nutritious foods that help promote health. And I think you do have a copy of the Mediterranean diet in the chat, I believe. Or no, okay. Well, you should be able to find it on the website, because we're putting it in many of our classes. So, and if you can't, let me know. I can email you one or send you one. Although I'll be back in 2 weeks, so I'm going on vacation. But moderation and variety are key components. I remember seeing on TV recently, they were interviewing a man who was 94, and they said, wow, what contributes to your health? And he said, staying active, more like taking a walk. It wasn't like running marathons, and eating healthy, but in moderation, you know, and eat for variety. So nothing in extreme. That's true for everybody. Don't try to eat one certain food all the time. You need variety. And be adventurous, like try some new cuisines. And I just was saying, like, everyone has different needs. So if you have to cut down on fat, you can do that, you know, by looking at your recipes. Maybe you want gluten-free. Maybe you need to eat higher fiber, so eat more vegetables, things that have skins on it. Maybe you have to do low fiber, so then try to eat more of those like green beans and carrots that are softened through cooking. And then low sodium, leaving the salt out of recipes and let you taste it, or use the herbs, garlic and onion, to give flavor instead of using salt. Even a few red pepper flakes on something adds some good flavor. And some people have to eat really smooth or soft foods where maybe they'd want to puree their soup too if they wanted to. I'm going to stir this up and add some of the broth right now. Let me just do that real quick. Yeah, so these vegetables are really soft and cooking. So I just add all the broth. And then we also decided to add a can of chopped tomatoes just to make it more interesting and get another vegetable in there. And that's totally fine. You can do that. So I have these San Marzano chopped tomatoes. So I just throw the whole thing in with the liquid. There we go. And I'll let that continue to cook for a bit. It looks really good. And actually, I'm going to add the beans now too. So these are those cannellini beans that came in the can. So I have 2 cans. I just rinsed them, and we're just going to pour that in without any juice. And put that away. And you know, I had to remind myself too, when I opened the can, the lid was kind of stuck and I couldn't open it, so I didn't want to use my fingers. I took a knife to flip it up. So I just can't say enough about be thinking of safety, because once you get a cut on your hand, and I don't know, it's just, I've learned that through my knee. I just had a knee replacement. It's like, I don't want any injuries. I just want to keep everything just right. So you got to just think twice on some things. So yeah, this is looking really good. I'll kind of show you a little bit of it. So you can see it too well like that. It's so I can't do it too much. It'll pour out, and then we'll add chicken in a little bit. So, all right, so now beans. So we are making a black bean soup here. And so beans are really good for you. They're inexpensive. So you can get them in a package just like this. And so I chose to do this route. This one I use canned beans. This other soup I'm doing the dried beans. And so last night I rinsed the beans in a colander, and then I kept the colander and I put it in a big bowl and I filled it with water and I let them soak overnight. And you kind of have to look at the beans too before you pour water on it to see if there could be like a little pebble in there or like a bean that doesn't match the others. Just remove it. And then you just fill it all with water up to cover the beans and let it just sit there overnight. I learned something that you should not eat a bean like this by itself. It's actually poisonous. So when you soften and cook the beans, the toxin goes away. So it's totally fine cooked, but don't drop them on the floor and let your dog get them. So, but I wanted to show you something else you can do with beans. Like, you can decorate with them. So this is just a trifle bowl with pinto beans in it and a candle, and it looks nice sitting out in your living room. I kind of forgot about that, and I was at a store that does it a lot. It's actually Anthropology, and I was like, oh, I got to do that because I just liked that out there. So I thought I'd share it with you. These beans are so inexpensive, not very much at all, a couple bucks at the most. But if you don't want to do the bean thing, the dried bean, you can get cans of black beans, and I chose low sodium. And then you do the same thing. You put them in a colander, rinse them with water, and then you can just throw them in. It's fine. So I alternate depending on what kind of time you have. But I wanted to do it for this class to cook the beans in the crock pot. So beans are very nutrient rich. They're inexpensive. They're shelf stable, and they have a lot of protein in them. So that's why we like them. They're a plant source of protein. And so some people use an Instant Pot, to cook their beans or to make soup. I prefer a crock pot. I'm kind of old school that way. And it's something I'm familiar with. It's easy. Or you can make a soup on the cooktop with a stock pot. So, so we talked about covering the beans with the water, let them soak. So when I got here at Living Well earlier today, I just poured a container of the vegetable broth once again, and I chopped up a whole onion and threw that in there, and you can add garlic too, and just let it cook on low all day. And then now when I got here, I had a sweet potato and I thought sweet potatoes go good with black beans. So I just peeled it and chopped it up and threw it in there. I actually microwaved it a little bit first and then threw it in there. And we do need to add a serrano pepper. So I've got that here, but I can do it in a little bit. I don't have to do it right away. And then you just let the soup cook on low all day. And then you can add some salt to help soften the beans so they don't lose their texture while cooking. I didn't do that. I thought if people want to do it when they get it, they can. I'm just not a big salt person. So, and then if you're going to just do the beans in the crock pot and have them for future use, because there's so many things you can do with them, you can just keep it in its own liquid and store it in the refrigerator, and then, you know, make stuffed peppers with it. I don't want to say too much because we have a beans class coming end of February, so I hope you'll join us then. So now I just want to talk about inflammation real quick. All right, so inflammation, you might hear that and you're like, what is that all about? You can eat foods that are that are anti-inflammatory. So first off, there's two types of inflammation. The acute inflammation is things we deal with every day, like if you got a paper cut or you got a splinter or you got some foreign object in you, your body is equipped to go there and fight off any infection and help you heal. So that's a good thing. We're just wired that way, that our bodies do that. It's pretty amazing. But then if you have chronic inflammation, that's something that's going on all the time. Like things that can cause chronic inflammation is maybe you have diabetes that's out of control, or you have heart disease that's still under the trying to find the way to manage it. Or a person might have Alzheimer's or rheumatoid arthritis, or if you have arthritis that's in an active state where it's really bothering you, or Crohn's disease. These things all contribute to chronic inflammation. So the foods that you eat can help you reduce or promote inflammation. So the ones that reduce inflammation are just the foods in the Mediterranean diet. So it's like oranges, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, red pepper, all those fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, onion, garlic, all these things help to reduce inflammation. The things that promote inflammation are the things we should be avoiding, and that's the processed foods, the candy, the cakes, the sausage, bacon, things that you might have been used to loving. Now you need to either get rid of, or, so I say, like, say a person likes hot dogs, try to get away from them. But if you go to a ball game, have one. You know, you kind of try to reduce, but then, you know, if situations come up, you know, enjoy it. Another thing is, like where I work, sometimes there's a birthday, so people will pass around cupcakes. I take a pass. But in my family, if we're celebrating a birthday, then I'll indulge. So it's kind of like picking and choosing when you eat some of those foods. And then, yeah, just try to every day. The big thing the American Cancer Society suggests is try to have vegetables, like 5 to 7 servings. It can be fruit and vegetables, 5 to 7 servings a day, or 6 to 8. And they're really good for you. I know not all people can do that. If they're having digestive issues, they may not be able to have that much, but I'm just kind of talking in general. Yeah, so here's the list. Here's the anti-inflammatory foods, the fruits, the vegetables, and then you want to opt for healthy fats. Like all I use really at my house is extra virgin olive oil. And you kind of have to be careful when you buy olive oil. If it's like on sale, like, oh, it's a great price, I'll get that one. Make sure you read the package. If it says 100% extra virgin olive oil, you're good. But if it just says olive oil, look at the back where the ingredients are. Sometimes they put soybean oil, so you're not really getting 100% olive oil. And that's kind of that marketing that you have to be so careful of. So just get a good bottle, and then you're not going to be using tons of it. You're going to use it kind of sparingly as you cook. We don't want it high fat. We want to keep it low fat in your cooking, because you get calories still from the olive oil. And then salmon and flax seeds also contribute to the omega-3s. You want to have some gut-friendly foods. We mentioned about yogurt. That's pretty much where I get most of my gut-friendly food. But there are things like kefir and kimchi to boost gut health, like fermented products. But I mostly just do the yogurt. And then for the pastas, try to get away from just regular pasta, try whole wheat pasta. It really tastes the same. It just might have just a little bit darker color, but you're getting whole grains using that. And they also have pastas out there that are made with like chickpeas and lentils, which I've tried those and they taste just fine. And then replace white rice with brown rice or even wild rice, and you get an extra fiber that way. Oatmeal is very good. That's a whole fiber. And then some of the high fiber cereals. When you look at a package like the ingredient panel, to tell if it's a whole grain, the first ingredient in that product should say whole, W-H-O-L-E, whole grain, and it'll tell you which grains it is. So that's what you're looking for. So like if you were looking for English muffins, you can automatically pick out sourdough ones. But you know what, look again and see if there's a whole grain. Sometimes they have whole grain with raisins. That would be a better choice. So kind of thinking twice, like I could have gotten a baguette, like a French bread baguette, but that's all white flour. So I looked further and found a whole grain loaf of bread. So you're just helping yourself that way. And it helps with digestion too. Some people complain of constipation, but when you include whole grains and the fruits and vegetables, get plenty of liquids and little exercise, that all helps with the digestive process. And then the big thing is cutting back on sugar and sweets. So, you know, we just came off of Christmas and you probably, you know, like everybody else indulged, but now being the new year, it's time to get rid of those cookies and candies that are straggling still at the household, and just kind of go through your pantry. It's a time also to check expiration dates on products. It's kind of that fresh start, like the new year. I'm not going to say resolutions because, you know, we've all been there, done that, but it's a fresh start. So looking at your pantry, the dates, maybe going through that freezer and refrigerator, and just start thinking of how you can plan more healthy meals. There's some really good cookbooks out there. Some people just go to the library and see what they like and check it out. Or you could even go to like a Barnes and Noble and park yourself there for a little bit and just flip through it. I like cookbooks with pictures. I like Skinny Taste is one of the series. Half Baked Harvest is one. Smitten Kitchen. You know, things that have a healthy approach to using more the Mediterranean diet or more plants would be what I would look for. And also just searching, if you're like to search for recipes on the internet, you could just type in healthy, like I was looking for lasagna recipe that was vegetable lasagna. So I just put healthy vegetable lasagna and I found a real good one. It was by Kitchen Kuchen, K-U-C-H-E-N. I've made it a couple times since Christmas Eve because it was so good and easy and it had a lot of vegetables in it and it was delicious. So, you know, just looking for, or sometimes you're going through the checkout line at the grocery store and those covers to the magazines just pop out at you. And sometimes I'll just pick up one of those. They're a little expensive, but if I flip through and see some recipes that look really good, I'll just get it because I like to use them for my classes too. Let's see. All right, so then here's just a little diagram of foods that are anti-inflammatory. So you'll see the, you know, fruits and the tomatoes, citrus, berries are really good. Blueberries, strawberries, nuts, using almonds, walnuts, even cashews, really good. Olive oil, leafy greens, fish. But then you look at the very bottom. Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
Oh, okay. And then look at the very bottom of that list. It's in smaller print, but those are the foods that promote or contribute to inflammation. And that's the French fries, the fried foods, the sodas made with regular sugar, refined carbohydrates like the white rice and the white bread, potato chips, lard like animal fat, and processed meats like the sausage, the bacon, the hot dogs. But once again, if you're really making a big effort to cut those out, if once in a while you had something like that, it's not a big deal. So we don't like to make people fearful of eating. We want you to still enjoy meals. That's our purpose. And we want you to feel good, it's like food is thy medicine. It's kind of where we're coming from. But it can be fun, you know, like to try these new recipes. Some people are getting air fryers and trying things like that. It kind of speeds up the cooking, but it cuts down on the use of fat too. So there's a lot of things out there that make it more interesting. Okay, let's see. Okay, so veggie forward, that's the big thing. When you're grocery shopping, foods have gone up, you know, it's expensive now, grocery shopping, but like look for seasonal. When you're in the produce section, I myself prefer the fresh vegetable. That's my thing, but look for things that are on sale. You know, like they'll have red peppers on sale, or, you know, just kind of pay attention to what's on sale and kind of figure your meals that way. Or when you get the sale papers for grocery stores, kind of peruse it and maybe start your meal planning using that, because you can make it work. It's the foods that are up and down the aisles, like the chips and the crackers and the pre-prepared foods. Those are what is really adding the expense to your grocery cart. It's not really the fresh vegetables. You can use frozen vegetables too. You can. A lot of people shy away from canned vegetables because of the sodium content. So fresh or frozen are really good. And the squash family is in season right now. And so that will last longer in your household, and you can make some really good soups that way, like a butternut squash soup or a pumpkin soup. There's a lot of good things out there. And then just making your soups hearty with the vegetables. And like I said, I love to tweak the recipe. I look it over first and change things. If I don't like something, I take it out and add something else to make it your own. All right, and let's see here. So how to make cooking less time consuming. So, you know, it can become a chore if you have to do it several times a day. Like for work, I bring my breakfast with me, like a yogurt, bring my lunch, it might be some leftover or a salad. And then dinner is where I focus on making something for the, you know, new. And then you want to simplify your meal plan. It can even be basically a protein source like fish or poultry, vegetables, and like a starch, like a potato or brown rice, or you can make a bowl. Stir fries are really good because you can, like, even if you wanted a beef stir fry using some steak, use less than you normally would, cut into strips, and then add more vegetables like broccoli, red pepper, onion, even some water chestnuts are good. Cauliflower, you can make a bunch of the cruciferous vegetables. You know, Brussels sprouts are also good in a stir fry. And that way you're getting more of those vegetables poured over your brown rice and a hint of the flavor of the meat. So if you have the time, like some people on the weekend, if they're working, they'll prep for the week. And they'll, you know, gather their ingredients and do some chopping and dicing ahead of time, put in containers or little baggies and have it set aside for, you know, they have a few meals planned. Weeknight dinners can be made in a single pot or a skillet. They're easy to make. You can do one pan dinners too, where you put your vegetables, the meat item, maybe some potatoes you're roasting all in one pan and roast it that way. There's cookbooks out there that focus on that, one pan meals. And then I always clean as I go. Like I don't like to leave all the dirty dishes and then serve the meal. I always like to clean up as I go, so it's less when you're done eating. It's just really the dishes. And then consider what you already have. Maybe you have a crock pot, so just start using that again. Some people have Instant Pot or just a stock pot. So I was also thinking about, like, if there's a person going through treatment and smells bother them. So like if you had a crock pot going all day and your house fills with those smells, it can be a big turnoff for some patients who are, you know, experiencing nausea and then the smell of food. So if it's possible to put that crock pot in a separate room with the door closed, where the smells aren't going to permeate the house, that's really helpful, so that when that person sits down to eat, it's just served to them. It can help with that kind of smell issue and nausea. So something to consider. Kind of reminded me, my son, my youngest, works at a fancy restaurant in the city, and it's a quiet kitchen where everything's quiet. They shut the drawers gently. They don't slam a pot on the cooktop. but any of the electric appliances like blenders and all are in a separate room with the door closed because they want people to focus on what they're doing without noise getting to them. So it's kind of a cool concept, really, because noise can contribute to stress and fatigue. So stock your pantry, your refrigerator, and your freezer with a few staples that can be instantly made into a meal. That's why I like to, when I go through the pantry, I think, oh, I got this, this, and this. This could be one meal that week, you know, just to keep up with things. And always make a grocery list so that you know what you're getting, so you don't have a lot of duplicate, because food does go bad pretty quick. Any leftovers that you're not going to eat, you can freeze, label, and date it. Oops, sorry. In advance. And then just minimize takeout foods. You know, they can be expensive and not as nutritious. And, you know, if you eat out once in a while, totally fine. You know, it's part of, if it's part of your lifestyle, it's part of your socialness. We want you to enjoy your meals still. All right, so let's talk about soup making now. All right, so we have the one soup here using a stock pot. So I put a little olive oil and I add my hardest vegetables first. So if I were doing like broccoli or cauliflower or a squash, I put those in first. Just a little bit of broth, just maybe like a 1/4 cup. And then I put the lid on so it's sweating. And you just let it cook on low heat until it's fork tender. And then once it's like that, then you can add your broth. So what you did, you were sweating your vegetables, which you see that moisture that, I don't know if you can see it too well, forms on the top. That's contributing to sweating the vegetables. And then next you add your broth. And then if you have any cooked meat, so we'll do that right now. We have chicken. So I'm going to add the whole thing. This was 2 chicken breasts that I just cooked in that glass baking pan, and then I just kind of shredded it. So we're going to throw that into the soup. I mean, some people get a rotisserie chicken, and you can certainly do that too. It's kind of a time saver, and that's fine. I'm just careful of not keeping that rotisserie chicken around too long. I just give it 1 or 2 days because, you know, sometimes it's been sitting under heat at the grocery store, but I don't think it's something that you want to leave in your refrigerator for several days. And then if you were going to add pasta, I just cook my pasta separately and keep it in a separate dish, and I just spoon it into the soup. Because when you've tried adding the pasta to your soup and you have like half of the pot left, you put in the refrigerator, the next time you look at it, it's like this blob, you know, of pasta and soup without liquid. It just absorbs it all. So it's nice to keep that pasta separate where you still have that juiciness of your brothy soup, and then just portion it in when you're ready to eat it. So it works that way, or do that with rice too. Okay, so. And then the slow cooker method, you know, you can just put everything in the pot and let it go. I would do it on low and let it cook all day. You can just set it and forget it and dinner will be ready. So I wanted to show you next what we're going to do with this black bean soup. This, actually I might get a different cutting board. All right, so I'm going to cut up the serrano pepper. I'm careful about it because when I cut peppers, sometimes the vapors get caught in your throat. They say certain people, it affects them. So it happens to me with jalapeno peppers. I'm not sure about the serrano, but we'll see. Yeah, so this is a serrano pepper, long, skinny. Let's see what happens here. I might just dice it or cut like this. It's the seeds that carry the heat. If you don't want much heat, you can take those seeds out. So I'm just going to turn this a bit. Let's see this. So this here is I'm using a crock pot with the beans that were soaked and cooked all day here. And then we've got sweet potato in here, and onion. And I'm just gonna get some of these seeds out of here, not too much. It's not too bad with the vapors, so that's good. All right. These will cook up pretty fast. Just stir them in because it's really hot in the soup. And then, my recipe real quick. So a few more things we have to add. Some lime juice. So, take it back over here. Just gonna cut the lime in half. And then I use a citrus press. So when the holes are down, you put the cut portion down so the juice comes out. So it's calling for, I'm just going to put a whole lime in here. That's about 1 tablespoon, and then another. Getting some vitamin C into this. And let's see. So I'm not going to add the salt. And then we're going to top this with a little bit of yogurt and some cilantro. I do feel that pepper. Get rid of these. All right, so now we'll just let that sit there like that. And we do have to add a few things to this other soup, which was basically vegetable soup with chicken and beans. Both of them have beans. Whoops. We need to add some lemon juice to this one. We'll cut that in half also. All right, let's put it face down. Add some lemon juice. Get a little more. Okay, and then we're going to add some black pepper. I don't really measure. I like pepper. And then some rosemary. If I hit fresh rosemary, that would be good, but we're going to use dried because, you know, herbs sometimes are harder to get in the winter months, and also supply chain, it makes it a little difficult. All right, so this soup is done. You can see that. And then I did add bay leaves to this black bean soup and some cumin. So yeah, so we got 2 soups here that are ready. And when we serve it, we'll add the yogurt and then the herbs. So I'm going to show you a few more things here. So here's some examples of some beautiful vegetables. You know, when you like, if I were making like when I was making that vegetable lasagna, I had zucchini, tomatoes, red pepper, sauteing in a skillet. And you just take a step back and look at it. It's like so beautiful. Like nature is so beautiful. So we got these beautiful peppers, the orange and the yellow, the red pepper. This is a turnip. Turnip is actually really good in soup. You know, like if you made a beef stew, or if you made even this soup, the vegetable one would be really good. It's a root vegetable. This is just to show you like the red onion, all the beautiful colors there, because you are trying to get a variety of colors when you cook. Carrots, you know, really nice. And then your citrus and the pepper, but beautiful colors. So you do, when you select vegetables and make choices, try to get all the colors of the rainbow, like red cabbage or eggplant, or, you know, all those contribute all the different nutrients that your body needs. And then think about the whole grains to go with it, like a piece of crusty bread is good. Let me just see where we're at. All right, so one more slide. All right. right, so the Mediterranean diet made easy with soups. It's just a great way to incorporate all these good things when you look at the Mediterranean diet or lifestyle. It's the vegetables, the whole grains, the healthy fats, the beans, legumes, herbs and spices, and then the less meat. That's what makes up the whole Mediterranean, and getting away from processed foods. And then we were saying include a variety of vegetables, incorporate a lot of different colors with your fruits and vegetables to get the maximum nutrition. And then again, small quantities of meat, but use beans and legumes to contribute more protein. Even a grain called quinoa, that can also be added to a soup. You might even keep that separate too and just spoon it in, but that adds some extra protein as well. And then the whole grains are good because they increase the fiber content of your diet. And examples would be the crusty bread, the whole grain pasta, brown rice, wild rice, all would be sources of whole grains to add to your soup. And just enjoy. Soup offers so much comfort in the cold days of winter. It's easy to make, it warms you up. And then, you know, you eat what you can and freeze the rest, label and date it, and that way you have future soups for meals. So thank you everyone for your time with us. We can open this up for any questions you might have. So if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself and you can go for it. But I appreciate the time that you spent with us. Thank you. Does anyone have a question? Maybe share what you're doing for soups or.
I have a question. When you add like the cumin to a big pot of soup, about how much do you add?
Yeah, so this bean recipe called for a tablespoon of cumin. But you know, it's really just beans and onions, so it adds a lot of good flavor. So the recipe will tell what you need, but this one called for a tablespoon, which seemed like a lot, but really when I tasted it, it just gave it more of like a Mexican flair kind of. So it was good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. And you know, herbs and spices are anti-inflammatory too. So we like to use that, and then it gives flavor without adding salt. You know, it's good.